Welcome everybody back into Nerd Sesh. As always, I'm Carson Breber, and alongside me is Logan Camden. And Logan, the entire playoff field is officially set. We just saw the final play-in games tonight. So today we're going to talk a little bit about those games, give a quick season in memoriam to the teams who got eliminated. We're going to preview the 1 seed versus 8 seed matchups in both conferences, and we're going to quickly go through our full playoff brackets and declare who we have as our NBA champion picks. But before we get into all that, Logan, I want to talk about the team that just got eliminated, that being the Dallas Mavericks, who the Memphis Grizzlies bounced and pretty convincingly led the entire game. Obviously, an insane season for Mavericks fans in every way imaginable, but how do you feel about them with their season ending this way?
I can't say anything nice about the Dallas Mavericks. Next year, they're going to have an opportunity to compete again, and then I think their window may be officially shut. That's the only positive thing I could say about Dallas is that this isn't it. You know, next year, Anthony Davis should be back, should be healthy. Kyrie Irving should be back, should be fully healthy.
Well, at the All-Star break, maybe.
Well, I mean, by playoff time, you should at least be available. I mean, they gave up one of the brightest superstars in the league for in aging and often injury prone guy. They don't have any of their first round picks after 2027. So, you know, it's like I don't have anything like super encouraging to say about Dallas. This was a colossal disaster of a season. Nico Harrison deserves to be beheaded and at least to have some like tomatoes thrown at him or something. You know, I wish there was a silver lining to this season. I guess it's the fact that they're going to be in the lottery. Good for them, man. This is the most disappointing season imaginable for Dallas, and I hope for their sake and for Dallas Mavericks fans' sanity that they have an opportunity to compete in the playoffs next year, man, because that's it. I mean, that's the only encouraging thing that could come of all this is an opportunity to win a championship next year. So I hope for Dallas' sake that they're there, and I like them at full strength. Like, that is the one thing that I will give Dallas is I still think that this could be a really competitive team when you've got the kind of rim protection and defense and length and athleticism that they have with an offensive guy that I really like in Kyrie Irving despite him getting older. Like, if this team is fully healthy, if they're fully available next year by the playoffs time, I think this is a team that I would consider to be a championship contender, but they got to be fully healthy to have that kind of championship ceiling.
I do think that they're a really good basketball team with Kyrie Irving. I still think that they would be on the outskirts of being a contender because I still struggle to see this team being like a good offense. And I think that obviously in the absence of Kyrie, they really struggle on that side of the ball. So I thought this was a disappointing defensive performance from them just because I think that they should be so good so consistently on that end. Offensively, you really just have nobody who can create a shot outside of Anthony Davis, who is also trying to adjust to playing in these double big lineups where he is primarily playing at the four. I know that's what he wanted because he's always craved playing alongside a center for whatever reason. But I do think you see stretches of this game where it's like he's so reliant on the perimeter game. He's so reliant on the jump shot. And although I think that AD is very skilled for a big, at the end of the day, he's a 30% three-point shooter. He's a 42% mid-range shooter. So there is going to be some inconsistency with his game offensively if he is that dependent on the perimeter stuff. But I thought that he played a phenomenal offensive game and overall was really good as a jump shooter and was more aggressive getting into the lane and attacking the paint as this game went along, but just nobody around him was really capable of stepping up. And even when you get Kyrie back, this team isn't going to have that elite playmaker. Kyrie, we don't know what he's going to look like, man. I mean, this is a guy who is in his 30s who is going to be coming off of a major injury. We don't know when he'll return. We don't know if he'll look the same at any point next season. So, for all these reasons, that's why the Luka trade, above all else, is the all-time disaster that it was, right? Because in terms of just the talent they bring back, Anthony Davis is phenomenal. But knowing the availability questions you have about him and knowing how much you are shrinking your timeline to be that all in on a group that is also worse in a vacuum, but then to be so dependent on winning now and to have no future essentially. And then when Kyrie goes down, like you just feel like you're in a pit of despair. And that was basically how the end of the year went for the Dallas Mavericks. It's scary to see AD grabbing at his legs and having to leave for a second early in the fourth quarter. And then he comes back. And like I said, I mean, he was incredible. He had 40 points in this game, but the future is just so, so dark in Dallas, and hopefully it gets better, but I don't think it's getting a whole lot better from here. Let's talk real quick about the other team that got eliminated, Logan. The Atlanta Hawks, who were in playoff position the entire year and then miss it through the play-in. The Heat bounced them. How do you feel about their season?
The Hawks are in a really interesting spot that, they're not always concretely into the playoffs. They're not really battling and are contenders, but they have a lot of assets that I really like. Trey had a really bad start to this game. The first half and first quarter was really, really rough. A lot of turnovers, a lot of ugly shots, but he was hitting some big shots in the second half to make this thing close. Down to the game tying layup to force overtime. I like a lot of what Atlanta's got going on, man. I mean, Jalen Johnson gets injured midway through this year, and you don't have him. You got to think that made a difference in this team's final end of year results and their trajectory. I really like Jalen Johnson for the future. I know Reese Shea has an absolute disaster class in this game, just couldn't get his shot going whatsoever. It seems like by the end of the game, he had just completely lost confidence. But I really like Reese Shea for the future as an off ball scoring wing and as a connecting piece. I don't think he's got that kind of superstar upside, but I think he can be a consistent and impactful winning kind of wing in this league. And he's still very, very young. I think that's important to note. And there's other guys I like here. I thought Onyeka had a really good game. I think that he's had a really good year. I'm just trying to think about the pieces that Atlanta needs to get over the hump and to take that next step. And ironically, Carson, the kind of asset that I look at Atlanta needing is kind of like the big man that Miami has in this game and who they were battling against tonight. I really think if they could get a Kalel Ware, a guy that could complement Onyeka. I like Onyeka a lot. I think he's a really good defensive big man, but he's not a really good rim protector. And I think if they could get another really impactful big athlete in there who wouldn't ruin their spacing. And I think Onyeka's improved offensively, but he's still he's hitting threes in this game. His touch has improved a lot. I've been really impressed with him, but I'd really like another real rim protector. And maybe you don't start both of them all the time, kind of like Miami does, but maybe you stagger their minutes. I really like if they could get another impactful big. And Dyson Daniels had a breakout year. I think, it's disappointing, Carson, when you're one of these teams that's stuck in this middle of the conference and you keep hitting your head, it seems, on this ceiling where it's play in, and you can't break through. But I say it every year, it seems like, about Atlanta. There's a lot of young talent here that I like, and there's something to say about that. And so I'd be encouraged. Like I said, man, Jalen Johnson took a step forward. Dyson Daniels took a real step. I think Dyson is the exact kind of guard that if you're going to keep Trae Young is the guy that you need in that two spot, a defensive connecting guy, and he's grown offensively as well. It's a steady year of growth for Atlanta. And so it may be frustrating that you're not breaking through into this new tier of teams or you're not in real contention. I think it's another steady year and improvement. And if they can stay healthy next year, if you get a full year out of Jalen Johnson, I would expect this team to make the playoffs and to at least be a little bit more competitive than they were down the second half of this year. But I think it's a relatively encouraging year for Atlanta.
I would agree, man. You just think about the expectations coming into the year, and you traded away DeJounte, who really wasn't very good for you and was always overrated. But there just wasn't a lot of established talents on paper alongside Trey. And you still got to the cusp, and you did that in spite of the fact that you lost your second best player midway through the season, that you traded away some of your other best contributors like DeAndre Hunter, like Bogdan Bogdanovic, and you are really relying on Trae Young carrying a very young core with a lot of players seeing the floor at the end of the year who just aren't all that good. But in terms of the wings around Trey, who I do view as legitimate pieces for this team, Reese Shea, I thought, had a very encouraging season. You mentioned the off-ball IQ, the shooting, the cutting. He's just going to be a productive, solid role player for any team. Dyson Daniels, super impressive season. I agree. His elite defensive value makes him a really nice complement to Trey, and he was a solid offensive player this season. I think that Jalen Johnson has legitimate all-star potential. In fact, he was kind of on the outskirts of those conversations this year before he got hurt. Just such a great do-it-all forward who has just continued to improve dramatically. Such a good playmaker, versatile defensive player, has improved as a shooter. So I really like that foundation. And then I like Onyeka a lot. I've always been a believer in his, man. I said back in 2020 that I liked him more than James Wiseman for the Warriors if they were going to take a big. So I've always been a fan of his, and I think that he's developed really nicely offensively. His touch is good, his feel is good as a passer, the shot has improved, and as you mentioned, was really going in this game. He's a little weird because he is undersized. You mentioned he's not that real rim protecting presence. He doesn't really anchor the defensive glass all that well at the five. So I don't necessarily view him as a cornerstone piece, even though I like him, but he's on a good contract. I mean, you're paying him like 15 million a
And
year for the next 4 years.
he's super versatile for a big man.
And just very productive once they made him the starter this year, gave you 15, 10, and 3 on 65% true shooting. So there's a lot of really solid pieces here. And I do think that they'll be in the playoffs next year because they have a lot of those solid wings. They have a solid big. And then Trey is just a really great offensive floor raiser. The question this team is going to have to continue to confront is Trey Young going to be content with carrying a young roster that is so dependent on him offensively to get bounced in the first round? Because that's what would have happened to the Hawks this year if Jalen Johnson stayed healthy. That's what's going to happen to them next year. And the reality is they just don't have a ton of opportunity for improvement because they don't have control over their own first round picks for the next few years. And even if they did, I mean, they'd still be in like that middling range because they're too good to bottom out and they're not good enough to be in these upper echelon playoff conversations. So that's kind of the big picture bummer angle on it. But the positive angle is this was an encouraging season for the Hawks. I would have liked to see Trey get in the playoffs just because I thought he had such a difficult job this season and really did an excellent job offensively. But at the end of the day, this wasn't the most talented team. It's not really a surprise that they didn't make it. I picked the Heat to beat them in this play-in game. And overall, I think you feel better about a lot of these individual players than you probably would have coming into the year. So with those two teams out, Logan, we officially have all of our first round matchups set. We have already previewed the 2-7, 3-6, and 4-5 in both conferences. If you missed those throughout this week, we've talked about them in great detail. So we're just going to talk about the 1-8 in each conference. Now, Grizzlies, Thunder, Logan. What's your prediction here? What are a couple keys that stand out to you?
I'm debating whether to give the Grizzlies a game or not in this series. I think I'm going to take the Thunder to sweep. What I'm looking for really is how Memphis is going to generate consistent offense, and that's where I really struggle with Memphis in this series. I think that Oklahoma City has a really, really good cast of perimeter defenders to throw and limit Ja Morant. I just think his job is going to be so exceptionally difficult in this series, no matter who his matchup is, right? If it's against the starters, if it's SGA, if it's Lou Dort, if it's J-Dub, all of those guys are incredibly switchable, are going to cause him problems one-on-one. But then you get to the bench, and it's like, he's not going to get any breaks. He's going to have to battle against Caruso. He's going to have to battle against Kason Wallace. So I just think it's going to be hard for Ja to be comfortable in this series. I don't think he's ever going to be able to, get really anything easy. And then the other advantage you would look at for Memphis potentially in this series would be their size and ability to dominate the glass with guys like Jaren Jackson Jr., and more importantly, Zach Edey, just because Zach Edey is that kind of transformative big man on the glass. I think you really felt that in this game against Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Dallas is a really big team, and yet Edey was destructive in this matchup. And so really the size and defense and rebounding is why I would consider giving Memphis an opportunity to get a game in this series. The reason that I'm not, one, I think Oklahoma City, the rebounding issues that we saw presented in their playoff run last year, I don't think are as exploitable with the addition of Isaiah Hartenstein and with Oklahoma City's ability to run those double big lineups. I think they're extremely viable offensively and defensively. But more importantly, I really see schematic issues for Memphis's defense guarding Oklahoma City in space. I think Zach Edey is a liability in space, and I think he is a guy that's going to get picked on all series long if it switches onto guys on the perimeter, if it's trying to guard guys in space. And you know, real quick, I think that can sometimes get a little bit overstated with Zach Edey because I think Edey is so impactful as a rebound. Like, I just think it's valuable having a guy like Edey out there on the floor, and I think that can get overstated sometimes. But specifically in this matchup, Oklahoma City is again the number one three-point shooting team in basketball by efficiency. And so I think it's vitally important that the team defending them is really switchable and doesn't have that kind of weak point on the perimeter. But specifically because Edey's probably going to be matched up one-on-one a lot with a Chet Holmgren or if it's Triple J. And I just think he's going to stretch out the defense, give them a lot of space, limit Edey's effectiveness as a rim protector and ability to just camp in the lane. And so that takes away his biggest strength. So I could see Memphis, if Oklahoma City has an off shooting night or something like that, maybe Shea's cold from the floor, stealing a game. But that's really what I'm debating here in this series.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a cakewalk for Oklahoma City. I think they really caused Ja to have an off series with their bevy of elite perimeter defenders and this elite defense. I think that they force a lot of ugly turnovers on Edey and Triple J. Both of those guys are really clunky and not coordinated. Like, I think that I'm trapping and sending doubles at those guys when I can to see if I can force them into dumb turnovers. And they just dominate this one. So I debated giving Memphis a game. I'm going to take Oklahoma City to sweep.
Yeah, it feels like the conversation here is really, are you going to take OKC in 4 or OKC in 5? I think the most interesting thing in terms of personnel and schematics to this matchup is going to be how much does Memphis go double big with Zach Edey on the floor. Personally, I would do so a good bit if I'm the Grizzlies. That's been their most effective lineup. They have a plus 13 net rating in the minutes when Triple J and Edey share the floor. Now, Edey has to stay stuck to Isaiah Hartenstein. He has to play exclusively drop coverage, right? You have to do everything you can to avoid him being out in space at all in this series. And like, it's scary defensively having Zach Edey on the floor against a team as fast as OKC that has so many perimeter threats, that plays so effectively in transition. But the reason that I would play Edey a lot in this series is Memphis is that you're a big time underdog no matter what, right? You can't play not to lose. You have to play to win. And you're not going to beat the Thunder downsizing and prioritizing speed a bit more and trying to beat them at their own game. They're just way better at their own game than you are. I think you have a better chance of at least giving them a competitive series, trying to go huge, doing what you have done best, and potentially beating them up physically, potentially dictating the glass, right? Because otherwise, I just think it's too easy for OKC. I think it's very simple what they do if Edey isn't on the floor. You put Hartenstein on Triple J. He's a really big physical defender who Triple J isn't going to be able to bully physically, which is what he likes to do. And then you can have Chet on Santi Aldama. You can have him as a roamer helping on all these drives. Like, that's just a very easy defensive formula for the Thunder to execute. If you put Edey on the floor, now you have to put Hartenstein on him because you just don't think that Chet can bang bodies physically with a guy who's 7'4" and has 60 pounds on him, right? And so now maybe you have to put Chet on Triple J, who isn't going to be as good defensively on an island in that matchup as Hartenstein is, just because of the strength difference. And like, Chet is amazing defensively. I think he's a really good post defender. He's underrated there because his length is just so impactful, but he's conceding a lot of strength in that matchup. And so maybe you don't like Chet defending Triple J on an island as much. And maybe you even think, okay, we'd rather have like a feisty wing like J-Dub on him, who's a lower center of gravity guy, right? And is going to really make all his catches difficult and has great hands. You might turn to just doubling the shit out of Triple J more, which I think is honestly a good strategy because he's been a second percentile post-up creator when he sees hard doubles. He is the worst passing star in basketball. So, like, at the end of the day, I don't think OKC is in trouble if they go any of these routes. I think they are going to be able to find answers no matter what because they're just a way better basketball team. But my thought process is if you put Edie and Triple J out there on the floor together, you're at least forcing OKC to make some decisions, and you're forcing them to play against what has been your best lineup. And what is a potential vulnerability of theirs? I agree. They're way better on the glass. They're much more equipped for these big physical front courts now that they have Hartenstein, but this is a very extreme version of it. And I could honestly see OKC countering Memphis going huge by actually going the opposite direction, by going Chet at the 5. So they are just so fast and everybody can shoot in that lineup. And you concede the battle on the glass. You say, okay, fine, you'll kill us on the boards, but we're going to be unstoppable offensively. We're going to make Edie guard in space. We're not going to give him an out with Hartenstein. He's going to have to be guarding a Chet Holmgren or whatever. And then that's when I think they could really play him off the floor. So regardless, I don't think there's any winning for Memphis here. I would just be more uncomfortable if I'm OKC going up against the double big looks. And for that reason, that would be the big decision to make for the Grizzlies. Other than that, a lot of this is just going to come down to like, what level can their stars reach? Because they would need those guys to be phenomenal for this to be a really competitive series. And Ja has been playing a lot better as of late. He ends up having a super inefficient second half in this game, but first half was really getting what he wanted. Last 15 games before this one, he's been averaging 28, 4, and 7 on 59% true shooting. That's a huge leap in production compared to what he was doing earlier in the year. And we've talked about the Grizzlies sort of going away from the identity that they had established earlier this year, leaning more into Ja pick and roll. And he individually is just much more comfortable when he is able to be running a ton of pick and roll, when he isn't asked to play off ball as much. But the Grizzlies team offense hasn't been any better since they made that shift and have let Ja play Ja ball more. Like his individual production is a lot better, but Memphis is 18th in offensive rating since March 5th, which is really when their style started to shift. And as you mentioned, OKC can guard him insanely well. Like you have Lou Dort's screen navigation and his motor, and then you have either Chet or Hartenstein playing drop. Like that's a really, really good answer to Ja. So I don't see him having the sort of like a dynamic, great series that Memphis would need him to. I do worry about Triple J seeing doubles against this super active defense that I think is going to force him into some mistakes as a passer. The Grizzlies have regressed a lot defensively. They've been 19th in defensive rating since January 1st. So are they going to be able to make OKC uncomfortable offensively? I don't think so. I think Shea is going to fillet them, especially without Jalen Wells. Like they just don't have the point of attack defender who can really even make him work. Not that Jalen Wells was going to be that guy, but he would be a better answer than the alternative. So I just think OKC's speed on the perimeter, their athleticism, their skill offensively, and then all the things that make them great defensively are going to translate very seamlessly to this matchup. Like they dominated the Grizzlies in the regular season, and they didn't have Ja for a couple of those games. They didn't have Triple J for one of those games, but just a much better basketball team.
Yeah, I think Memphis could dominate the glass in a way that keeps this moderately competitive. But I'm telling you, I think with Oklahoma City's rotations and how much havoc they wreak, I think this is going to be a really ugly Triple J and a really ugly Zach Edey series. Like, I think there's just going to be. I think there's going to be moments where those guys are just overwhelmed and turning the ball over a lot and frustrated. Like, don't get me wrong. I think Edey could have a big rebounding series. I think Triple J could abuse some mismatches because he's so good. But I think there's going to be a lot of moments where Memphis is going to look up and, just holy shit. How did this defender get here? I didn't even see this guy. And I think Oklahoma City's going to get him out on the break, run in transition, spray a lot of threes. And I think Shea's going to cook in this series. So, yeah, I don't know, man. I think Ja would have to have a flawless series, which I think is going to be super difficult with this personnel matchup. I think Triple J would just have to be unconscious. It's just so much would have to go right for Memphis, and I just don't see it, man. I think Oklahoma City's going to roll in this one.
I agree, and I will point out, even as I'm talking about Memphis going double bigs to try to impose themselves on the glass and win convincingly there, like the Thunder double big lineups have also been excellent rebounding. In fact, if you look at both offensive and defensive rebound rate, when these teams go with their double big looks, they're in like 1% of each other. They've been super comparable on the glass. So even that isn't like a real big advantage for Memphis if it's double big on double big. I'm going to take OKC in 4. I considered 5 just because Memphis is a good team, but they haven't been playing very good basketball for a while. And OKC is just unbelievable, man. They're an absolute juggernaut. They have advantages in basically every category. And I'm going to bet on them winning convincingly because I was thinking maybe it's a gentleman's sweep, right? They go up 3-0 and then they let up a little, but OKC doesn't let up, dude. They play with that fire and that intensity as consistently as anybody in basketball. Let's look at the other 1-8 matchup, Logan. Cavs Heat. What are you looking for here?
I think I'm going to take Cleveland in 5 in this one. I do think Miami in their weird voodoo magic playoff, they're going to get one, I feel like. I really like Miami. I just really like how solid their rotation is. Like, they've got a lot of playable dudes that I just would like to have in my rotation. I think that the leap that we've seen from Tyler Hero has been really, really impressive this season. I think Khalil Ware is a freaking stud. I'm so glad I staked my claim in him pre-draft. I think him and Bam really, really work together, but they're also just give you that versatility where if you want to have one of those guys on the court and the other off, I think it really works. I think Ware's got even more offensive upside. Like, he's such a monster on the glass, and he's such a good lob threat and just a simple play finisher. But I think he's got real floor spacing potential. And then, you get it off of Jimmy, but Andrew Wiggins is solid. Like, Kyle Anderson is solid. Davion Mitchell had an awesome game, and I've always thought that he was, a rotation guy in this league, and the Kings kind of just discarded him, right? So I really like Miami's rotations. I think they can get an off night from a Cleveland guard. I think Darius Garland could have an off game.
Off night. Off night. That's Davion's nickname.
Yeah, for real. Well, I think Davion would be the reason why. I think that he could cause Garland to have an off night. I think that Adebayo and Ware could muck things up enough for Mobley and Allen in a single game to get one. But ultimately, the difference to me in this series and why I'm going to take Cleveland to win in 5, they are the better basketball team. I prefer their depth, all of that, obviously.
Yeah.
I prefer them on both sides of the ball, actually. But the biggest difference to me is the caliber of offense. Cleveland's offense has been number 1 all year long. And Miami's offense, I don't know if you saw the stat they flashed up during the game. It's the fact that nobody in the NBA this season has more losses after leading in the third quarter than Miami this season. They've got 15 such losses. So I think their clutch offense is going to let them down a little bit. I think there's a really, really big burden on Tyler Hero to get tough buckets. And not that this is anything against Hero, but it's going to be everybody else stepping up. And I think that's where it's going to get a little bit too overwhelming against this Cleveland offense that just generates easy offense at will. Darius Garland has been awesome. Donovan Mitchell has been awesome. Mobley and Allen, too. Like, they've got shooting everywhere. They're just the much better two-way team. So I thought, just out of respect for how dominant Cleveland has been on both sides of the court, if I should give them the sweep. But Miami's just too feisty. I don't think Miami is going to go down in a sweep. I think Coach Spo, I think this team grits out one victory. But very similar to our last series, I think Cleveland's just going to roll in this one.
I am picking the Cavs to sweep here. I just think the talent disparity is too big. This is just about as big a gap between two teams offensively as you're going to see in the playoff field. I do want to give Miami props because I do think that they're a very solid basketball team and their best players have been playing really well as of late. And I like their kind of quote unquote big 3, like Tyler Hero. I think has the potential to have a couple of nuclear games in this series. His last 10, he's averaging 29, 5, and 5 on 69% true shooting. And the Cavs really don't have the best point of attack defenders. Bam Adebayo is also playing really well, had a brutal start to the year offensively, but since the All-Star break is averaging 21, 9, and 4 on 60% true shooting. And I do really like Wiggins coming in as a two-way wing. So I believe in those 3 guys. The challenge is just, like, the Cavs have 3 all NBA players this year, and I think that their depth is clearly better. Now, hopefully, Miami will have a couple of guys back for this series who they've been without for a while because their depth has really been stretched pretty thin. Jovic has been out for a long time. He's legitimately good, but he was questionable for this game against Atlanta. So you get him back out there. Kevin Love has been out for a while, but you get him back out there potentially. Like, that helps them. I still think that Cleveland has the better depth. So I'm basically just like looking out for a couple of indicators that I want to see from Cleveland in terms of how they project going forward. I'm interested in seeing who starts at the 3 in this series because they've been going with Max Strus. I do think that DeAndre Hunter is a part of their best 5-man lineup, and I want to see him closing a lot of these big games. In this specific matchup, though, I'm fine with Strus starting just because I think that he can do a pretty good job on a guy like Hero. And this isn't a matchup where I think they need the size of a DeAndre Hunter on the wings like they will against the Celtics or a team that is more big wing centric offensively. But I'm interested in seeing if they make the change to Hunter because they really haven't done that. I want to see how Evan Mobley looks offensively because this is going to be a series in which he's going to be matched up with another big for a decent stretch. Like, I think we're going to see the Heat go double big a lot because those looks have been really effective for them. Khalil Ware has been really good, and obviously the Cavs are going to go double big a lot. So when Mobley doesn't have those sort of physical advantages to work with as a mismatch attacker, if he's matched up with Bam Adebayo a lot, that's a really difficult defensive matchup. So I wonder how productive he's going to be offensively. And then when he does have opportunities to attack mismatches, how consistently aggressive is he? Because Mobley's had a phenomenal season. I'm the biggest believer in him that there is. But for the Cavs to like win a title, they need a really great version of Evan Mobley offensively. So want to see what form he's in. And then I just want to see collectively how the Cavs look on defense because their defense has not been the same in the home stretch of the season. They are, I think, 15th in defensive rating since January 1st, just very average. And I think a lot of that is just them taking their foot off the gas, not really needing to reach their defensive ceiling because they had the 1 seed effectively locked up so early. I just want to see them get back to the level that I believe that they're capable of on that end. But regardless of if they check those boxes, like, I don't see how the Heat get more than 1 game, and I don't expect them to get a single one. I'm going to take the Cavs to sweep here. So now, Logan, let's just go through quickly all of our future hypothetical picks. So, to lay things out first, let's talk about all of our first round predictions. We won't elaborate, just say who we picked in each series. So, obviously, I have the Thunder advancing and beating the Grizzlies. I have the Warriors beating the Rockets. I have the Lakers beating the Timberwolves in 6, and I have the Clippers beating the Nuggets in 6.
I have the Thunder beating the Grizzlies in 4. I have the Warriors beating the Rockets in 6. I have the Lakers beating the Timberwolves in 7, and the Nuggets defeating the Clippers in 7.
So we diverge on Clippers Nuggets. So your second round matchup for OKC is going to be the Nuggets. How do you see that going?
I'm going to take Oklahoma City to beat Denver in 6, and then we both have Lakers Warriors. I'm going to take the Lakers to beat the Warriors in 7.
Okay, I'm going to take the Thunder to beat the Clippers in 6. I think the Clippers are an excellent basketball team. I think that they can defend the Thunder decently well, but I think that OKC is going to be able to give James Harden a really hard time. I think he's been playing phenomenally well. I think he's going to have a great series against Denver, but he shot 31% versus the Thunder this year. That's not a coincidence. It's a really tough matchup with their perimeter speed and athleticism and aggression. And Shea's going to be the best player on the floor by a good bit. I trust OKC's depth more. So I think that's a good battle. I think the Clippers are really, really good, but I expect OKC to pull through with a little bit of margin. And then Lakers Warriors, I'm going to take the Lakers in 6. I considered 7 because I think the Warriors have some advantages with their speed on the perimeter. And this is a matchup in which both teams are going to go small a lot. So that's going to be fun. But I trust the totality of the Lakers offense more. I think the Warriors could struggle a bit dealing with a couple of really big wings like Luca and LeBron, or those big ball handler types. And I just think the Warriors are so reliant offensively on Steph and Jimmy, scares me a little bit. Like, the Lakers have a big three offensively, and then those guys are all so great on ball. They're able to directly dictate their outcomes offensively, and then they have really good shooters around them. Whereas it's like with the Warriors offense, you're more reliant on guys capitalizing around Steph on the attention that he draws. He's not necessarily going to be as effective on ball. And I just have a lot of questions about some of the supporting offensive pieces. So we're both going to set up an OKC LA conference finals in the West. In the East, I have the Cavs sweeping the Heat. I have the Celtics sweeping the Magic. Then I have the Knicks beating the Pistons in 6, and I have the Pacers beating the Bucks in 7.
So I've got Cleveland and Boston winning their series as well, both of them in 5, and we completely agree on Knicks Pacers. I've got the Knicks in 6 and the Pacers in 7.
Okay, so second round, what are you expecting from Cavs Pacers?
I've got Cleveland taking down the Pacers in 6. I think the Pacers' superpower ekes them out a couple of games. I just think it's a recipe that you can have a lot of success on. I look at the Pacers kind of like how I look at the Washington Commanders in the NFL. It's like when you can just put points on the board, it's such an elite superpower that you can compete with some of the best teams in the game. The
Yeah.
difference is that Cleveland's just a much supreme two-way team. And like also, I get that Boston, packed up Indiana last year in the Eastern Conference Finals. All of those games were super
Yeah.
competitive, and I think that Indiana, no matter who they play, no matter who they run into, this is just a team that is going to be a tough out every single night. Like, it really is a superpower that they have, that they can score offense in bunches like that. So I think it's going to be relatively competitive as a series like that can be. So I'm going to take Cleveland in 6.
I'm going to take Cleveland in 6 as well. I agree. I think this could be a really interesting battle. These are both great offenses, teams that are super effective playing with pace. I think the Cavs have more talent on both sides of the ball. At the end of the day, I think that they have more dynamic creators. The Garland and Mitchell backcourt is so difficult to solve. And I think that the Cavs have more defensive answers for Indiana. I think that they have much more defensive versatility than, for example, the Bucks, who they're going to see in the first round. I think they have the ability to guard a Pascal Siakam pretty well. I think they can guard the Pacers front court really well with the size that they have there. And they're just not rigidly attached to any certain coverages defensively. You can switch Mobley, you can switch Allen, but those guys can also play drop. They just have so many options on both sides of the ball to be a really good basketball team. And so I do see them winning out in that one. How about Celtics Knicks?
I'm going to take Boston in 6.
Okay.
I'm debating how many games exactly to give the Knicks here. Like, I think they're kind of marching to their death against Boston. I'm just I'm going to give Boston a couple off shooting nights or something like that here against New York. I think that's what it's going to take for New York to steal a couple of these games, mainly because I just don't think the Knicks have the personnel needed to really disrupt Boston. That being said, I think their two best defenders are going to be matched up against the guys that they can disrupt the most in Tatum and Brown, the two most important players for them. So, aggregately, in totality, I think that Boston's talent advantages are going to win out. Specifically, the matchup against Jalen Brunson, where I think that White and Holiday are going to kind of be able to get what they want, or if they're getting switches on Jalen Brunson. And similar logic with Karl Anthony Towns. I just think there's going to be some positional liabilities that they're able to exploit in that starting lineup. But I think Anunoby and Bridges are going to be able to battle as well as you can against Tatum and Brown. So they slow that duo down a little bit in a couple of games. Maybe the Celtics have a few off shooting nights and they take out New York in 6. But I'm closer to Celtics in 5 than I am Celtics in 6 in that matchup.
I'm closer to Celtics in 4 than I am to Celtics in 6. I'm going to go Celtics in 5. I think they are a terrible matchup for the Knicks. Not only are they a way better basketball team, like, I just think this is Cat's nightmare series, having to guard in space this much because this team is so obscenely skilled, having to deal with like the ultimate stretch five in Kristaps Porzingis, who has just absolutely killed the Knicks. You look at the last game they played, just consistently pulling Cat out into space. And then they also have so many high level drivers who can punish the Knicks' lack of rim protection. I agree that OG is a phenomenal defender in this matchup on the Jays. I don't think that Mikal is strong enough to deal with these two. I think that both Jalen and Jason are just a bit too big and physical for Mikal, who is that slider wing, who really is better set up to deal with smaller wings or guards defensively. So I really just see zero answers for New York defensively. And then, like you said, I think Boston can also hunt Jalen Brunson. I think that the Celtics' depth is significantly better. The Knicks just really have no versatility, unfortunately. And the Celtics are a team against which it would be very nice for them to have some versatility, but they don't. And I think that they get handled pretty easily in that matchup. I know that they almost won their last meeting, but that kind of felt like the Knicks Super Bowl, and they still didn't get it done. Conference finals time, Logan. We both got Thunder's Lakers. What's your pick here?
I'm going to take the Thunder in 7. I think this is an absolute battle. Luka and LeBron, I think that Oklahoma City can throw, their well of perimeter defenders at these guys, and I think Lou Dort is going to be the only one that's really uber effective, and so I think that there's always going to be a mismatch. I know that Oklahoma City has a bunch of elite perimeter defenders, but they're just at a size disadvantage against Luka and LeBron, and so I think they're going to get theirs. And I just think I trust Luka and LeBron to have big enough games to steal some from Oklahoma City. The difference to me is I don't think LA, I think the double big lineup, I don't think Oklahoma City's going to employ it a ton because I think that Luka can really exploit them with that. But I think that I like their bigs more. I think they're going to win on the glass, even though I don't think that's a massive advantage for Oklahoma City. And then I just prefer their perimeter shooting. And ultimately, I don't think that Luka has shown me that he's at a high enough level where I could pick him to do what he did last year. But I can't count it out. Like, I'm closer to... I could see the Lakers coming out of the West. I really can if Luka tunes it up. And that's why I really consider taking LA out of the West. Like, Luka's one of those guys that scares me, that I think that he could just take over. I mean, he's one of those special players on the planet, but I'm just not as confident as I am at the level that he's at as I am with Shea. And I think that kind of gets underrated, man. I don't know what it's going to take. I do know what it's going to take for people. Shea's got to win a title, and it's got to be this year, and that's what it's going to take for people to fully appreciate him for what he is and the level of basketball that he's been playing at. And that's really the difference to me. I'm more confident in Shea Gilgeous-Alexander being the best player in a series between these two teams, and that's the edge. I'm at like 55-45 between both of these teams. It's so close. I think the Lakers really match up well with Oklahoma City. I just have more faith in Shea right now, and so I'm betting on OKC. And obviously, I prefer their defense.
Yeah, I do expect Shea to be the best player in this series, but I also expect the Thunder's defense to be able to make LA more uncomfortable than vice versa. And I just think the Thunder have a lot more defensive versatility. I think that there are a number of coverages that they can try, right? If it's switching on Luka and daring him to beat them as a scorer one-on-one, where he's been better as of late, but hasn't been super consistent this year. Or if it's playing drop coverage with excellent screen navigation from a Lou Dort and with really good rim deterrence from your bigs. Then I look at the Lakers and I'm like, they don't have a prayer of guarding Shea straight up. Their entire strategy is going to be aggressive gap help on all of his drives and dare shooters around him to beat you. And I just believe in the Thunder shooting. Like, they've been first in 3-point percentage since January 1st. I don't think that is a viable enough defensive strategy over the whole series to slow the Thunder's offense down. I think it's the right strategy given their personnel, because they just can't guard Shea one-on-one. Nobody can, but I also think the Lakers especially can't. And they're really good as a collective team defense. They do a really nice job with gap help. I still think the Thunder's collective offense is too good. I trust their role players more in terms of their two-way contributions. And I think the Thunder are the better basketball team. I think that this is a tricky matchup for them because Luka and LeBron are so massive and so strong and so difficult for any team to deal with offensively. But I think the Thunder are the best two-way team in the West by a good bit, and I still think they're going to be able to get what they want offensively for the most part against LA, and I think that they are going to have more answers defensively. How about Celtics Cavs, Logan?
I'm going to take Boston, and I'm going to take Boston in 6, I think. Cleveland got a lot better by making the trade for DeAndre Hunter, and I think they closed the gap a little bit. I think it was an important rotation piece for them to add to match Boston physically. I think this is the best Cleveland team that we've seen. I mean, number one offense this year. Kenny Atkinson has come in here and done wonders. You know, we saw Evan Mobley take a leap. We saw Darius Garland bounce back in a big way. We've seen Allen steadily improve. Like, Cleveland's really, really good, but Boston is just the standard, and I just don't think Cleveland's there yet. I think that this window is going to open up when Kristaps Porzingis ultimately exits. I think he's going to have to because of the salary cap restraints, but until then,
I thought you were saying at some point in these
oh
playoffs
no,
with
no,
injury, and I was like,
I really hope not.
no.
I really hope
Yeah.
not. If that happens, you know, I would give Cleveland a little bit more of a chance if that did happen, but I would still think I would favor Boston. Ultimately, schematically, this comes down to the fact that Cleveland is going to have the two biggest glaring defensive weak points on the court. And I think that is something that Boston's going to be able to exploit. They do two things at a really elite level, and that is shoot the hell out of the ball from behind the arc and attack mismatches. And I think when you have two glaring weak points on defense, like Donovan Mitchell, like Darius Garland, it's just really hard to overcome in this specific matchup against a team that is so good at attacking mismatches, where Tatum is going to be able to get what he wants, where Jaylen Brown is going to be able to get where he wants. And it's not just limited to those guys. It's really a switch on anybody. Holiday and Derek White both have size on these guys, even though they may not be the most physical guys. Horford and Porzingis are good mismatch attackers. And so because of those defensive liabilities, I'm going to take Boston to finish them off in 6 on their home floor.
Yeah, you basically hit the nail on the head in what I was going to say. These are two phenomenal offenses. One team is just going to have to work harder because there's no defensive weak points to attack. And that's Cleveland against a really stellar, complete Boston defense. Whereas Boston is going to have a major entry point in Darius Garland, who they are going to involve in every single action. And who I think they're going to very successfully be able to physically impose themselves against. And either the Jays are going to score efficiently in isolation, or they're going to draw help and they're going to find an open shooter. Like, every time that you involve Garland in an action, you are giving yourself an advantage offensively. And that's an edge that the Celtics have in this matchup that the Cavs just don't on the other side. So I think it's going to be a phenomenal series. I think it's a very, very good 6. I think both teams put forth great offense. I just think it's going to come easier for Boston because their defense is more complete than the Cavs, and it's a better defense, period. How about the NBA Finals now, Logan? Thunder Celtics. We have had this as the matchup on paper since before the year, and here we are at the end of the regular season, and we both agree this is still what we are expecting. Who do you have as your NBA title pick?
I'm going to stick to my guns at what I said at the halfway point. Started this year, I was on Boston. Midway through the year, I've moved to Oklahoma City, and I'm going to stick with that pick, and I'm going to take Oklahoma City to win. And it's specifically something that we've touched on throughout this year and something that we saw in matchups between these two teams in the regular season, and that's specifically Oklahoma City's ability to limit and guard Jaylen Brown. Carson, it sucks, man. I think discourse is going to be really, really toxic if Oklahoma City doesn't win it this year. And I think it's going to be really, really negative, and I don't want that to happen. I want Oklahoma. I guess I'm a little bit biased. I want Oklahoma City to win because I think it would just be such a screw you to a lot of people in the NBA, like media sphere, that just aren't believers in what Oklahoma City is doing this year and has done. And it seems like the only way to validate their success this year is to cap it off with a championship. But I truly think that this is a historically great defense. I think they pose a better matchup problem for Boston than anybody else in the NBA today. Again, with all of their elite perimeter defenders, but with their size that they've added this year, but specifically with how they guard Jaylen Brown, I just don't want it to be something that if Oklahoma City goes down in 6 or 7 games for people to say they can't win the title, they're too young, Shea's not good enough. I just don't want this to become you know, somebody taking victory laps on something that's so dumb. It's like, I don't think this is a failed season if Oklahoma City doesn't win the championship this year. I think it's a young team that is struggled to get over their final hurdle, which is to ultimately win the championship. But I think they're going to do it, and I don't think we're going to have to worry about that. I think Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is going to be the best player in the world in that series. I think he's got the opportunity to do it in back-to-back series against LA and Luka Doncic and against Jason Tatum and the Boston Celtics. And I think this is a historically great defense that can just disrupt Boston in
Yeah.
ways that nobody else in the NBA can. And I just want them to do it, man. There have been so many people that have been negative and skeptical about Oklahoma City all year long that have looked and cherry picked individual losses from this team, and I think just overblown them. I think this is a really great team, and I think this is the year that they establish themselves as the new kids on the block and the new favorite. And I think Oklahoma City is going to be the new standard. They're going to set the bar. So I think it's super competitive. I can very easily see Boston winning this series and being back-to-back champs,
Yeah.
but I'm going to take OKC in 7.
We've talked about this a million times throughout the year, and it's still all hypothetical, so I'll try to keep it quick here. But I'm going to take the Thunder in 7 as well. I think that the Celtics are the safest bet against basically every other team in the league because they have so much margin. I mean, just the amount of creation and shooting that they have offensively is so overwhelming. But in this specific matchup, I like OKC. I think SGA is the best player on the floor in this series. I don't think there's anything that Boston can do with him defensively. I trust their shooting around him enough. And then I think their defense can make the Celtics uncomfortable in a way that nobody else can. I think that against everybody, OKC is just bringing a different level of speed on the perimeter, of disruption with their ball pressure, their ability to fly around, force turnovers at an unprecedented rate. They're elite protecting the rim. They have insane lineup versatility. So, like, for all of those reasons, they are the best defense in basketball. And that translates to every matchup, right? They're going to be excellent defensively no matter what, but specifically against Boston, their ability to contain dribble penetration against an offense that is so dependent on that, and specifically to give Jaylen Brown hell. As you said, he cannot dribble the ball comfortably against a defense that is this feisty with this many great perimeter defenders. He can't attack mismatches against them, which is what he does best because there are no mismatches to attack. Everybody they play is good defensively. Everybody they play is super active hands and is going to fight really hard for position. So I just think he really, really struggles. I think he can take the Celtics offense out of rhythm. I think he's inefficient. I think you can relegate him to being more of a jump shooter if you're OKC, and he's been a bad jump shooter all year. So that's ultimately why I lean OKC. I think to beat Boston, you have to make them uncomfortable with your defense. I honestly don't think any other team in the NBA can do that, but I think OKC can do it at a really, really high level. So that's why I am going to take them. This has been like 51-49 for me all year, and like Boston is so insanely talented, and it's possible that you drop KP into this matchup, who we didn't see in the second meeting between these two teams, and he is just like a nuke going off because he is that insanely good. But I'm going to lean on the formula that we've seen OKC execute in the regular season, winning out here. So there you have it, folks. I feel like a kid on Christmas Eve night, Logan. I am genuinely so excited to wake up tomorrow and watch Bucks Pacers. And then we've got Clippers Nuggets. We've got a beautiful, beautiful slate for tomorrow. I can't wait to get into all of it, man. I think that this should be one of the best postseasons we've seen. I think it should be one of the best first rounds that we've seen, especially in the West. It's very rare to have this many matchups that you think are this close on paper. And I just can't wait to get into it all. And I can't wait to talk about it after with you tomorrow night, Logan, because we're going to be live tomorrow night. We're going to be live Sunday night, and we're going to be live a whole lot of nights throughout this postseason because it's playoff basketball time, baby. And we are locked the fuck in. So I hope you guys are all back here tomorrow night with us. And I hope you're with us throughout the entirety of this playoff journey. If you want more of our content, you can find it all on our YouTube channel, all of our full-length shows, all of our video essays and video breakdowns that we do going more in depth into one specific topic. You can also listen to all of our episodes across all audio platforms. And if you want our short form content, you can follow us across social media, TikTok and Instagram at NerdSesh, Twitter at Nerd_Sesh. You can see all of our social content there. And if you want, you can join our Discord. The link to that is at the link tree across our social media bios. You can also check out our merch in our link tree. So with that, I cannot wait for tomorrow, and I hope to see you guys then. I've been Carson Brabber.
I have been Logan Camden.
And this was Nerd Sesh.